but I didn't. And when they went in to check me, they found out that rather than being 8 weeks, I was more like 10 weeks, and then they wanted to charge me more. Okay. So I went through the procedure again, went home, stuffed it, didn't talk about it again, had my great nice wedding. A few months after we were married, I was pregnant again. This time my husband's happy. I don't know what a year made, but now he's excited. So I'm excited too. And I had a midwife, and I went at about 10 weeks to have my prenatal care. It was my first visit. And at 10 weeks, I went in, and she did all the things she needed to do, and then she took this little machine out, and I said, what are you going to do with that? And she said, we're going to put it on your stomach and listen to the baby's heartbeat. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking about this blob of, looking like a blood clot. And I said, a heartbeat? I said, you're not going to hear a heartbeat. She goes, oh, we'll hear a heartbeat, and we hear it many times sooner than this. And as soon as she said that, she put it on my stomach, and I heard boom, 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 the little heartbeat of my daughter. And I was so excited. I just was elated to be able to hear my baby's heartbeat. And within a split second, my heart went to the pit of my stomach, and I said, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? And I decided to stuff those feelings and go with the happy feelings. So I went home, went through that pregnancy. I was about 5 months pregnant. I had a girlfriend who was pregnant with twins and on bed rest. So I would go visit her, and so we talk, baby talk, and she had a fetal development book there. And believe it or not, I was in my, early 20s. I had really not seen fetal development at that point. It's all over the place now, but it wasn't really that. And she said, look, 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 look where the babies are. And she's showing me she was about 8 months pregnant. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. And I turned to where I was, and I looked, and I thought, oh, this is awesome. And then I had this icky feeling, and I went, do I dare? Do I dare look back? And I went back to 10 weeks and looked. And it wasn't a blood clot. It was as Carla described it. And then I went back to 8 weeks and realized the same thing. And again, I had that horrible feeling of what did I do? And at this point, I got a little angry because I really felt lied to. And I stuffed all those feelings, went on with my life, had that baby, beautiful daughter. God's blessed me with kids. I can't believe it. And after her, I got pregnant and had a miscarriage at 4 months, and that was pretty hard. And part of me thought, how come I'm grieving so much over this baby, and like I didn't do anything over the other two? And then I got pregnant with my son, who's now 20, and I had him. Well, as life just went on, we were this happy family, kind of. But there was just always something there. And one thing I had done was, after realizing I'd been lied to and kind of felt pushed into it, I took a no one's going to ever tell me what to do again attitude. And I took it with my husband. And that wasn't very good for our marriage. And needless to say, our marriage fell apart and ended in divorce. And actually, it was pretty amazing that we even got married, because the statistics are, if couples have an abortion, whether they're married or not married, the likelihood of them staying together is very slim. Most of them break up. So he left me, single mom with 2 kids, and right before he left, I had started to have some of these feelings come up and knew I needed to deal with them. And I had went through a group called Conquerors, and it was a wonderful group for healing, and I had been doing that. I talked to him a little bit about it, but because he was so pro-abortion, he really didn't want to hear about what I was going through. And I believe me kind of going through that kind of pushed us over the edge probably a little bit towards the divorce. Well, I'm going to tell you what these guys didn't tell you about is a little bit of what happens with your other children when you need to tell them about the fact that you've had an abortion and that kind of thing. So I had 2 children, and one day, when my son was about 5 and my daughter was 7, we were driving down the freeway, and I always carried one of those little babies. You guys know about them, the little fetus. I carried one in my purse, and my kids had pulled it out and played with it, and the poor thing. Anyways, one day we're driving down the road, and my son sees this billboard with the fetus on it. And he says, Mommy, look at that. Isn't that like the baby you had in your purse? about abortion or not. I wasn't sure. So I decided to tell him very graciously about abortion, and I just said, well, what that's about is a thing called abortion. And of course, I'm like, what's that? And I said, well, that's where when a mom is pregnant and has that little baby in her, that she, for whatever reason, she doesn't feel she can afford it, she doesn't have enough money, she doesn't have a husband, for whatever reason, she decides she's not going to have that baby, so she has the baby taken out. My son, with the wisdom of a 5-year-old, which seemed like more than most adults I know, said, but Mommy, doesn't the baby die then? And I said, yeah, it does. So we proceeded to talk a little more, but I did not feel it was the time to tell them about what I had done. A few years later, I started getting some speaking engagements and was starting to speak. And I knew sooner or later my kids would be hearing about what I was doing. So I decided to sit them down and tell them about what had happened to me, what I had done, that kind of thing. And when I sat down and told them the mistakes I had made and how I regretted it so much, my daughter, who then was probably, she would have been about 9 or 10, when I was done explaining, she said, is that what you wanted to do to me? And oh, that hurt so bad. That just hurt so bad. And I had to reassure her that no, I didn't. But my kids had to deal with that and struggle with that. And they're great kids. They have forgiven me. They're wonderful. They're very pro-life. And I think they are because they realize there's 2 siblings out there that they don't know and what happened to them. And so, I just want to let you guys know there's more than just the woman and the baby that get hurt. Marriages fall apart, relationships fall apart, children question if they were wanted or not, siblings. It can go out even farther than that, like some of these guys have talked. What kind of, guilt may the parents have if they had something to do with their child having an abortion? What about the boyfriends? What if they were the ones really feeling they needed? It affects way more than just those 2 people. And so I just really thank you guys that you are here and that you are willing to stand up for this. And I just hope tonight that you've heard some other sides to the abortion thing, that it can be very painful for women. We didn't even talk about other things tonight, like all of us have a higher risk of getting breast cancer because of what we've done. No one told us about that. So there's a lot of lies being told to people out there when they go to get an abortion, and I just hope you can help educate people on that by hearing the stories that we've told.
Deep cleansing breath. I'm the Wisconsin State Team Leader for Operation Outcry, and I wanted to tell you what that's all about. The Justice Foundation is a law firm in Texas, and years ago, Ellen Parker, the president of the Justice Foundation, began to get women coming to him and telling him about their abortion and how they were hurt physically and emotionally, and he did not know what he could do legally with that, but had begun hearing more and more stories. And so he found out that he could collect the stories. Back then they called them affidavits, and you had to get them notarized. And they began gathering them. Norma McCorvey, who is the Roe of Roe v. Wade, and Sandra Cano, who is the Doe of Doe v. Bolton, both of those cases made abortion the law of the land, so they say. They became clients of the Justice Foundation and looked to overturn their cases. And the stories that they gathered were used in those cases. My story was used in those cases. And the Supreme Court said, we don't know how big this problem is. We noticed that some women come to regret their abortions. We don't know how many that is. With 50 million abortions, you can bet there's quite a few. There's more than 4.